Okay, let's unpack this. For decades, whenever we've talked about the dangers of AI, we all get the same picture in our heads.
Killer robots.
Exactly. Killer robots, steel armies, the whole Terminator thing coming to life. And it's great cinema, it really is, but we have to challenge that narrative now.
It's definitely the easiest fear to sell. But the analysis we're digging into today shows that, well, that cliche isn't just wrong, it's actually a distraction.
A distraction from the real danger.
Yeah.
The core threat is where you can't see it. It's in that quiet moment when we just silently hand over these huge decisions.
Without any resistance.
Right. Decisions about our jobs, the information we see, our whole identity even. We just pass it over to an algorithm. The threat isn't a war, it's this everyday invisible integration.
And that leads to, I think, the most provocative claim in this deep dive. The real danger here isn't the technology.
No.
It's the powers that control it. And maybe more importantly, the societies that just blindly trust it. So if you're waiting for that robot uprising, you're going to miss the entire thing.
The entire civilizational transition.
Yeah, a transition that works with data and infrastructure, not with bullets.
So if this technology is in everything, the very first thing that happens is a fundamental redistribution of power. It's less about a tech upgrade and more a power shift.
It's a massive transfer of authority.
Yeah.
And the concentration of that authority is, frankly, startling. The analysis points out that fewer than 10 entities.
What's 10?
Think of the big players. OpenAI, Google, Meta, Amazon, and then governments like China and the US. They now control something like 90% of all advanced AI.
Wait a second, though. Doesn't that concentration help innovation move faster? I mean, is there any upside to that, or is it purely a threat?
That's the classic trade-off we're always given,
Right.
right? Speed versus security. But the downside is it's an unparalleled transfer of authority. It's not just from governments to corporations.
It's from humanity to code.
That's it. This tiny handful of entities is basically setting the rules for what billions of people see, what they understand, and what the future even looks like.
Yeah. So what's the consequence of that? If these decisions are being made by systems that so few people control, what does that do to our ability to live freely?
Well, the thing is, freedom doesn't just disappear with, like, a boot on your neck. It's not explicit tyranny.
No.
It disappears by misdefinition.
Mm-hmm.
The algorithms decide what data matters, what content gets seen, which identities are shaped. You lose your freedom when your whole environment is sculpted by someone else's interests.
And the result is this new, really alarming kind of control. It's power without accountability.
Who do you sue?
Exactly. Who do you appeal to when some black box algorithm makes a life-altering decision about you?
You can't. And this is where it gets really important for you, the listener, because that power concentration, that's what allows algorithmic bias to just flourish.
Historically, discrimination was terrible, but at least it often had a human face you could confront. Now we have this structural discrimination with no face, no responsibility.
And this is the really dangerous part. It has the appearance of being scientific. That false veneer of objectivity is what makes it so corrosive. Because if a machine tells you something is a fact, people are just way less likely to question it than if a person tells them.
And the examples are just chilling. Look at Amazon. They tried to build an AI hiring tool, right? They had to scrap the whole thing because it was systematically rejecting women. Not because the system was programmed to be sexist, but because it was trained on 2 decades of Amazon's own hiring data.
Which was already biased towards men.
So the AI just learned that being male was a key credential for the job.
It absorbed the bias and then just amplified it. We see this danger everywhere. I mean, think about facial recognition systems in the US.
Yeah.
They've been shown to have up to 10 times higher error rates on darker skin tones. That's not a glitch. That's our own history.
Yeah.
Our data pollution, baked right into a technology that's supposed to be about the future.
And the irony is genuinely terrifying. We build these tools to try and make things like the justice system more fair. And yet, judicial risk algorithms, like that infamous Compass system, were labeling black defendants as high risk twice as often as white defendants for the very same crimes. A system meant to be objective just makes our worst biases worse.
And what's fascinating here is how that social bias, once it's coded in, it just becomes national. It becomes pervasive.
Yeah.
And there's usually no real way to appeal it or even object to it.
It's a quiet death for fairness.
It really is.
Yeah.
And this structural shift, it connects directly to how surveillance and control have evolved.
It's so much more than just cameras on a street corner now, isn't it? Surveillance used to be physical. Now it's this constant, passive digital collection.
Behavioral tracking, decision prediction, even emotion analysis.
Yeah.
It's a permanent record of every single digital move you make.
Wow.
And if you want the starkest example of this future, you have to look at China's social credit system.
Right.
In that system, tiny actions, like jaywalking or paying your bills late, they all get fed into this central score.
And that score then dictates your life.
It affects your freedom, your job prospects, whether you can even travel.
I think the most terrifying part of that for me is that the threat isn't just that the government knows what you did yesterday. The real threat is that they think they can predict what you'll do tomorrow.
Absolutely. The ability to predict behavior lets them use preemptive control. Why bother arresting someone when you can just subtly block their opportunities?
Restrict their movement, their job prospect.
Their finances, all based on a risk score. In a world like that, freedom dies because the choices are erased before you even get to them. You aren't stopped by a cop, you're just never given the opportunity in the first place.
So let's pivot a bit to the less obvious dangers, the ones eroding our culture and our economy. We're starting to see something that feels a lot like a modern colonialism, but with data.
That's a good way to put it. When just a handful of platforms and language models decide what's seen, what's preserved, what's important, you get this massive cultural dependency.
And intellectual dependency, too.
That's right. When a machine can create content cheaper and faster than a person, what happens to local identities, to nuanced histories, to smaller voices?
They just fade out.
They get pushed down below the algorithmic feed, and you're left with this cultural homogenization where every platform looks and sounds the same because that's what the algorithm found most efficient.
And this structural shift has huge economic implications. We always hear about AI eliminating jobs, but the sources we're looking at suggest it's something much deeper, much more destabilizing.
Yes. AI eliminates social classes.
That's the key distinction.
It's not just temporary unemployment we're talking about. It's a structural threat.
Yeah.
All those routine, knowledge-based jobs that built the middle class.
Legal research, coding, accountant, design.
They will either disappear or be so fundamentally changed by automation that they're unrecognizable. This just concentrates wealth at the very, very top.
Leaving a huge segment of society as, what did the research call it? Unemployed but operational.
They exist, but they have no economic power.
And the final piece of this erosion is creativity itself. When a machine can write a novel, paint a masterpiece, compose a symphony, and do it faster and cheaper than any human, where does that leave human imagination?
Well, if the goal for an artist shifts from that messy struggle of real creation to just feeding an algorithm what it wants,
or finding the most efficient way to generate content,
then we're left with something that might be technically beautiful, but it's lifeless. We risk trading messy, unpredictable human imagination for polished, predictable, artificial beauty.
Which brings us to a really crucial question. If these dangers are so profound, this power concentration, the bias, the cultural erosion, why are we still so focused on the killer robot cliche? Why are these real structural threats so widely ignored?
I think there are a few core reasons society keeps missing the point. First, it's just narrative. Hollywood likes an enemy you can see.
A complex algorithm quietly denying loans is less exciting than a laser gun.
Much less. Second is complexity. The real dangers, like data pollution or power concentration, they're academic. They take time and attention to understand. People fear what they can easily picture.
And then, of course, there's the money.
Oh, absolutely. The economic factors. Companies are making trillions from this system. Their whole business model depends on the threat being invisible. It's not in their interest for you to scrutinize the code.
Right.
And the final factor is just public indifference. We're not good at dealing with slow structural threats. We saw it with climate change. We're seeing it now with AI.
Yeah.
We prioritize immediate comfort over long-term survival.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, survival means we have to stop ignoring this slow threat. We need to build some non-negotiable foundations for a kind of digital democracy.
Yes, and the analysis outlines 4 core responsibilities. The first is full transparency.
What does that mean in practice?
It means the black box has to be opened, the algorithms, the data they're trained on. They can't be designed behind closed doors. We need to have an audited, verifiable way to see how these systems are making life-altering decisions.
But how do you enforce that? The tech moves so fast, it crosses borders in an instant. How can you regulate proprietary code?
And that difficulty leads you right to the second foundation, global regulation.
Because AI has no borders.
Exactly. A bias model built in one country can immediately affect citizens all over the world. We need international agreements, like a sort of digital Geneva Convention, because any nation that lowers its standards becomes a risk for the entire system.
And the third foundation speaks directly to us, to the citizens. Public education.
Digital literacy isn't a luxury anymore. It's an essential civic skill. Society has to understand how it's being manipulated, how our data is being used, how algorithms are guiding our behavior.
If you don't understand the mechanisms of control,
You can't possibly resist them.
And the fourth pillar is AI ethics. This is the framework that has to guide the whole thing.
It has to. Development without ethics turns this powerful tech into nothing but a super efficient tool for exploitation. Ethics can't be an afterthought. It has to be baked in from the very beginning.
So developers are held accountable for harm before it happens.
A future built purely on efficiency with no moral compass is a future that has no human core.
So what does this all mean for you, the person listening right now?
The core insight, I think, is that the crisis isn't the technology. It's the weakness in our own social and political systems that just don't understand the force they're facing.
AI is an accelerant.
That's the word. It speeds up everything. The concentration of power, the redefinition of reality, and it quietly weakens human responsibility everywhere.
Which means the landscape demands we ask the most essential question. What specifically are humans surrendering?
And the answer is unsettling.
It's structural. We're seeing the quiet surrender of our voice, the surrender of choice, of critical judgment, of cultural diversity, and ultimately the surrender of the future itself to these unaccountable systems. So when we talk about AI, we aren't really talking about technology. We're talking about the future of politics, the future of culture, the very definition of freedom, and the entire architecture of power for this century. The coming years won't be defined by a rebellion of machines. They'll be defined by the quiet, institutionalized surrender of humans. That's the danger to fear, and that is the hope worth fighting for.